Hey there and welcome back. So in the previous video we set up a simple test there. We did the health check for the API and let's see if we can do some more advanced testing here. So we actually ran the npx command. We did npx playwright test reported equals list, and this is the direct command to start the playwright test. So what we should probably do also is we should add a new script into package.json so that we can simply write npm test. Because right now if we write this npm test, it's going to say we don't have a script for this, and this will be very, very handy when we try to connect this to a CI/CD pipeline so that we can run the test automated. But fortunately, it's very easy to do this. So we're just going to go into package.json and we will do test equals, and then we do basically the command that we did here before. We're just going to do playwright test reporter equals, and then we can decide what we want here, but let's just put list here. And I need to make a comment here. So now we have testdb because our Playwright web server requires this command, or we need this command to start the server. And then we have the test command that will just start the actual test. So if we run npm test now, we can see it's just going to run npx playwright test, and it's going to run the same test as we had before. Okay, so let's see if we can create maybe one more advanced test, because right now we're actually only testing if the Express server is running. We don't check anything regarding any endpoints or if the database is running or anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new file here first that we will call, let's call this user test.ts. And I think I will use the template for our very basic test, and then let's just modify that. So we will call this valid user registration info. So we're going to test what happens if we pass the data for registering a new user into the API. And it is important to do testing of valid input, but it's also equally important to also test the invalid, because we need to know and to test how our system is behaving when we pass in wrong or invalid data. To test all the different error messages that we have. For instance, if we have an error in the password, if it's not long enough, or if the email or anything is already present in the database. So this is important to test, and this can potentially be a lot of different tests we need to make if we want to test the entire system. All right, so let's see here. This is not used. Okay, so what we should do, test. I'm just going to set the timeout for this a little bit. We can see what happens if we don't do this, but we can set the individual timeout for how long time Playwright will allow this test to take. The reason why we're setting this a bit up here is because we're going to make a test that will communicate with the database, and this might do so the test will take longer time because we need to communicate with Mongo Atlas. And we're going to use this AAA testing pattern. So we're going to do range, we're going to do act, and we're going to do assert. which is a well-known structured way of setting up your tests so that you are arranging the things you need to set up. If you have any data or anything like that, then you're going to act, you're going to do what you need to do, call the methods that you want to call, and then afterwards you will finally assert what the output was from this function or whatever you acted on. So in this test, we're going to make a new constant called user. And basically, we're just going to make a user registration here. Oh. So now this is a valid user, so we will input the correct number of characters for the password, and also a valid email. Let me see, I have an error here. Let me just put here, let's just modify this with 2. Okay, so yes, probably type this correctly here. So we have a user that is the user we will try to register in the send to the endpoint and register in the database. So let's see, let me just collapse this a bit here. So the acting, we will make a constant called response. We're going to await our request. We're going to make a post request because remember from the API design, the route to handle registration of a new user was a post request. So we're sending data to it, including a body with the data in it. So we're going to do this. We're going to send some data. And we're going to send the user. Then we're going to make a new one. Let's see here. Okay. All right, so JSON, await response JSON. So that's going to be our acting. And now we can do a couple of expects. We could at least do expect the response status. To be of 200, because if everything goes well, we would expect 200, or probably we should look into the auth controller here because we should be able to see what happens if we register a new user. This is the best case. We will register it, and actually 201 we have marked this with. So let's put 201 here. And we could also expect that the JSON error to equal null. And why we're doing this? Well, let's have a look here. If we go back to auth controller, we can see that if it goes well, we will send 201 status OK created, and then we will also send a JSON object that has error null, so no errors, and we will also send the ID. But I think the one thing we could do is basically to know if that this is also null. But we can do a lot of cool things using Playwright to assert. All right, so this is one a bit more advanced test than we did before. We're talking to the database. We're targeting a more advanced endpoint here that will require some data. We're posting it. We're using AAA. But the thing is, if we go to test list, we will, of course, we need to import it. And I think we should also probably call this something else in health, maybe. So we can call this user test collection, because we can add more tests to this if we wanted to. So user test collection. So if we head over to our test list and we go here, see, we got it right there. So now it's pretty important that we use the .env flow here, because we need the database connection URL for actually saving this data here. And also what is important here, other than we will do user like this, what is also important here is we need to have a clean database. And we talked about the thing about this env files. We had this env test and development and the normal env file. The important thing is that when we do testing, we will do these tests in a clean database, isolated environment. It's a bad practice if we do this on the production database, because first off, we might change the data, delete data. We might want to wipe the entire database so we can check the number of collections, number of documents in our database afterwards. So what we need to do is that we also need to add some code to communicate with the database and to allow us to actually check, to set up the database before we start the tests. So we will do a new function here called setup, and the setup function here will do two things. So we will first off, we will do, oops, before each test, clear test database. And after all the test has passed, or after all the test has been run, we will also clear the test database. So we start with a fresh one. So how do we do this? Well, first, fortunately, when we do this, when we have this this test object up here, we will be able to connect to a hook or method called before all, before each, depending on what we want. Then we can create an async function here. And in that function, we can do like this. We can do a try and finally. So let's see what we have here. If we do await connect, and yes, let me see what happened here. We're getting, yeah, our database function is called connect, but it will get something called HTTP2, so that's not entirely correct here. So let's just fix this right away here. So we need to go to source. We need to go to repository, database, so we can run the connect command. And we will do the user model, delete many, and I think let's just import our user model here, because we need to clear the user collection and also the product collection. So we will go into the models there, and then this is okay. And we're going to do the same thing for product model. I think we can just copy the one here. Product model and product model. So we are we're running these, and then in the finally we can do await disconnect from our database, and we will I can see that VS Code tries to import a lot of cool things here, but unfortunately the wrong thing. So we need to import disconnect and connect from our repository so we can run them in this before. So this will be these commands will be run as it says before each test. So we will clear the MongoDB collections in our database after each test, and this will leave us with a clean database that we can work with. And we should, let me just check here, let's do like this. Let's just put in after all the test has been run here, we will also clean up the database. So this is basically just a cleanup. Okay, that was a lot of code here that we did. Let's see if we need something more. So we got the setup function here. Of course, we need to call the setup function first off to see if it actually works, and then we are using the test describe user test collection to see what happens. Okay, so let's try this out. And we can run npm test, and because we have this this file here, the test list ts, we can order the different tests as we want. All right, so we can see here that the tests are passing. Valid user registration info was completed. Very nice. We can also see we have this connection established, connection closed. This comes from the repository. So I think I might just go in here into the repository and just comment this out. Because we don't need to see this every time we connect to the database. So we have connection established, connection closed. We also don't need this one. Okay. All right, so let's try it again. Okay, so we can see it takes just a bit longer to run the valid user registration test because we are communicating with the database. If we go into that test, let's just make a funny thing here. Because if we do like this, we are violating the information. This should be caught by the joy validation here. So if we run this test, I know this is not correct in our test here, but let's just see what happens. If we do this, we can see that if we run this test with invalid data, even though it's called valid, it will give us 400 instead of 201. So there is actually, it actually works, this test. So if we provide wrong information, our tests are failing, but it should actually pass when we have the correct data here. So we can see the test is working when we have the correct data. And also, this is a good point here maybe to make, that a test is only as good as the data or how it is structured. So if you have wrong test data or you are doing it the wrong way, it has little value to your test, to the overall test. All right, so the video got a little bit longer here. So now we did the test command in our package.json, and we also did extended our test list ts so that we're able to do database test. We can use our endpoints that work with the database, and we have created one with valid user registration. And in the next video, we will extend upon this and maybe do one that tests the invalid input, which is also important. So hope you make this work and have fun with this. Bye bye and happy coding.